Good evening. Today we're going to be covering just making chords because it's the most fundamental part of making a tune. And a lot of people that I talk to really struggle with making chords. So I think maybe we should just go through no production at all our own sound design. We're probably just going to only use saw waves maybe. And let's just see how we can make this sound a little bit more beautiful with some chords behind it. So we are just using this Fisher Rain song. And we're at 130 beats per minute. So let's just get this vocal in time. Right, so from the original, I know the rain sits on the 1. So every time it starts in.
Every time it rains,
Right, where's the rains there?
every time the sky flashes lightning.
So we're in D sharp minor. Let's just try starting the D sharp. The root note is always going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find bass notes that sound good, and then we can start building the chords above and beyond that. So when I'm doing this, I have no idea what's happening. I don't know how it's going to sound, trial and error. So all of these purple notes, because I've got it on scale mode, highlight scale means that we're in the key. Actually, maybe we could just press scale. So all of these notes are going to be in key now. So maybe that will help us a little bit. So let's just find some nice bass notes. Do. Right, that could work. Let's try that one up a bit. So what I'd always do once we've got our bass notes in is add a third. So the 3, and then I'm going to press shift and up on the keyboard to take them up an octave. For me, it just sounds like way more emotional. Really, really like that sound when the thirds are an octave above. So let's have a listen to that. Alright, I think that could work. Not 100% sold on the second one, but maybe it's alright. Let's see how we go. So if we just add a little bit of unison, take the detuner down a bit, put a bit of a filter on there. Maybe some distortion. And hyperdimension. Or a chorus maybe. Maybe a little tickle of that. I always try this bode thing recently as well. When you increase this blur, it can start to wobble in a weird way, which is quite nice. That. Yeah, super easy way. Like normally I would do an LFO on the fine tune to make it wobble like that. But yeah, this is quite a new thing in Serum, I think. Maybe we add a bit of noise as well. And to help that evolve, let's try, if we put LFO 1 on the cutoff and on the level of our noise, increase that a little bit. So maybe 2 bars. Maybe something like that.
Every time it rains outside, every time the sky flashes lightning, say put your hand in mine. We'll go out and dance like the sun is shining.
Alright, great start. There's loads of things that we can do to make it a little bit more interesting. So let's just try, maybe do that. Whatever that is. Let's try that. Maybe one more. Nope. Right, so it sounds a bit weird at the moment because our attack on Serum is sort of doing this. So we're bending into the notes. So maybe these ones where we push them, maybe we could slightly change the envelope. So what I'm going to do is we're going to separate these two out. So this one is going to have that gradual opening of the envelope, and then this one you can slightly shorten it. So they're exactly the same sound, but I'm just changing this little bit. And you maybe could do that with automation, but it's just a ball ache. I prefer separating stuff like that, because also it means that if we want to do that again, we can just pull that down more like that. And we can gallop onto that rhythm by maybe just giving a little bit of a gap with this one before we get into this second one. Right, I think that's going to work. It doesn't sound how it will sound. I think we can do some more stuff to help that. It feels a little bit abrupt at the moment, but we can do some automation and stuff to sort of smooth that over. So let's try that. I'm just going to do this fourth chord pushed as well. Let's see what that sounds like. Yeah, I think that's better than what we had before.
Every time it rains outside, every time the sky flashes light, it's simply
So having those notes, those second chords pushed just a little bit, really helps to give it rhythm that it didn't have before. So before it was just a very basic, everything was doing on the one, very rigid rhythm, but having these pushed a little bit, I think really helps give it rhythm when there kind of is no rhythm. So we're trying to inform a bit of rhythm with the chords. So maybe let's just try add some more notes on top of these. So I have no idea what I'm doing right now. I'm just going to try anything. Maybe that. Don't know if it sounds too dark when I do it like that. It's quite pretty before. Maybe it takes away. Let's see. See, I like it, but does it make it too dark? That's the only thing I'm thinking. Maybe that one in particular. Maybe that. Every time the sky flashes light, it's safe with your hand in mine. We'll go out and dance like the sun shining. Yeah, let's work with that. Let's see how we go from there. Right, so we can help this evolve a little bit more. We can just add a bit of distortion to this maybe. Might just help it, might be a bit much, but let's help that crunch that a little bit. I've got to do that to both of these now, which is a bit of a pain in the arse, but worth it. A few things I think we should do is pitch bend. Pitch bend into the first note. And then maybe out of the end of that. Maybe let's copy that for the rest. Let's see what that's like. And then maybe we could do a response with our pitch bend on this section here too. Let's see. Right, so maybe we could try pitch bend into it, but I don't want to do the exact same thing. So maybe we could just have like these weird little bumps, super short bumps to just help it move a little bit that are not necessarily anywhere particular, just sort of random. So I always try something, doesn't necessarily work, but we can refine it. So quite like the sound of that one, it's a little bit more open. It's a bit better. Maybe let's copy one of those over here.
Every time the sky flashes, time it rains outside. Every time the sky flashes.
Something like that, so it gives it a little bit of movement. Copy that over. We could, if we were spend loads of time on this, what I would do is not have this exact same automation on this end, so we could just slightly change that. Maybe let's just do that very quickly now. Just ever so slightly change them around like that, maybe. Yeah, something like that. Let's keep that going. Right, something like that. Let's copy that over to the second half. Right, so at the moment it's quite an abrupt end from this first chord into the second. We could do two things. We could either accentuate it or we could soften it. I'm not sure which is going to be the best route yet. Maybe go to a trusty endless smile. Let's do both. So if we open it up before it stops playing and we accentuate this little gap, or we could do the opposite and carry on the endless smile. Let's have a listen to both. All right, or if we let that carry on. I think that's a bit better. Yeah. All right, nice. Couple more things we could try and do to give it a bit of movement is an auto pan on something. So I'm going to put it on this second one because we've done the endless smile on this first one. Maybe this second one we can do something else too. So if we maybe automate the amount of an LFO tremolo at the end of a phrase, maybe. Let's see what that's like.
Every time the sky.
Something like that.
Every time the sky flashes.
Yeah, it's not bad. Maybe it's a bit too intense at the moment. Let's just bring that down a little bit, but a tiny bit of that.
Every time the sky flashes.
Right, maybe we don't want it the second time round. Maybe every other.
Every time it rains outside. Every time the sky flashes light. Put your hand in mine. We'll go out and dance like the sun is shining.
Yeah, hell yeah. I think it sounded great. Maybe the last chord, we could change something. That, maybe. I'll just take that up one semitone. Think that works. Yeah, nice. Ever so slightly different to these other three, but it just gives a nice little change. Right, so a few things we could try are having some kind of, I don't know what you call it, not a counter melody, but a melody something that's just memorable. And I think if it's not memorable, then we don't need it necessarily. So let's just see what we can do. So I think, as I said, I'm only going to use saw waves in this whole song. So a few things we could try is almost like a Hugh Gale kind of vibe, like a do 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 do, a sort of drone note. All right, something in that kind of vein. Let's make it a little bit more interesting. Let's put a cut off on there. Let's get our LFO to do a bit of a pluck. Go to that cut off. Try another saw wave with some PD from A. Just make sure B is coming through oscillator as well. Yeah, I think a little tickle of that's quite nice. Let's put a compressor on there. a bit distortion.
Raise us up. Every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine. We'll go out and dance like the sun is shining. And I raise us up. Every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine.
Maybe that's a little bit nicer.
Raise us up. Every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe a bit of hyperdimension.
Raise us up. Every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine.
Maybe let's try that same bowed thing. So we increase the blur. I might just wobble it a little bit.
Raise us up. Every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine. We'll go out and dance like the stars.
Alright, so that's pretty nice way to just add something a bit more interesting. We could try another note. Let's just see what another note would sound like.
Raise us up. Every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine.
Yeah, you get very different vibes depending on what note you choose.
Raise us up. Every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine.
The one I always like is a third. So we're in D sharp minor at the moment, and the third is this F sharp. Just sounds a little bit more emotional to me when you hit the third. So that's my personal preference, but it's not, it's black and white. Maybe we could just do some little bits of pitch bend in this as well, just to help that move a little bit.
Raise us up. Raise us up. Raise us up. Every time.
I'm just doing like really random stuff now. I've got no rhyme or reason to it really.
Every time the sky.
Because we're doing it ever so slightly, so you're not really going to hear it. So it doesn't have to be perfect at all. And actually, if it's not perfect, it probably makes it feel a little bit more natural. So I wouldn't worry too much about exactly what you're doing.
Every time the sky flashes light.
Alright, it's cool, but it's too much. And instead of doing all of the automations, I'm just going to take the pitch bend semitone up and down, so it's a bit less intense.
Raise us up. Every time the sky flashes.
Yeah, that's a bit better. Maybe we should put an echo on that with a ping pong.
Raise us up. Every time the sky.
Right, there's so much of that low frequency. Let's get rid of that.
Every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine. We'll go out and dance.
Yeah, nice. Very easy way to help that evolve
Raise us
is we could just automate the cutoff as well. I mean, maybe at the end of some phrases here. Again, I'm being very all over the shop with it. I think the more you try and make it perfect, the more robotic it sounds. So you can just do sort of go mad with it, paint shit at a wall, and then fix it afterwards.
time to raise us up. Every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine. We'll go out and dance like the sun is shining. And I'm with.
Yeah, nice. Easy. Alright, so now we come to a chorus. Like, we've got a couple of options really. We could just copy and paste. I'm sure this is going to sound great, but maybe we can do something to evolve it a little bit. Let's just see what it sounds like.
Every time it raise us up. Every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine. We'll go out and dance like the sun is shining. And I'm with you. I don't feel afraid. And I'm with you.
Actually, it doesn't sound as good as I thought it would, which kind of helps, because I was going to say we should, for the sake of this video, evolve the melody a little bit, or the harmony a little bit more. That didn't really feel right to me. So maybe what I'm going to do is I've kept our original bass notes where we wrote the foundation of these chords. I'm just going to take those over and we can start again effectively. So I think when we come to this chorus, it feels like there can be a really nice change. And if we start with the bass notes in the same way, we just almost take this as a new song. So starting with something totally new. Let's just have a listen to how these bass notes sound from the bit before.
I
So that isn't too bad. I think maybe it's some of the extra bits that we stacked on top that might have been getting in the way of the vocal, but I still think we can maybe do something a bit more interesting and do the exact same thing as the first half. Let's just try change the one. I think that sounds nicer coming on that B. Again, that was a total accident really. We were starting on the D sharp and I felt like it wanted to be lower. Didn't do the 7th. Doesn't normally sound that good, especially at the bass notes. So one more. Something like that. Maybe that. And maybe we could have a little bridge note in there. Let's pull these down to our chords. So let's do the exact same thing. Add a third. So second, third, and then shift up to the next octave. Yeah, nice. Maybe they could be an up an octave. Right, so I think these ones sound too low, but these ones are great. That's better, I think. So I'm just going to take these two up an octave. Right, what I'm going to do is duplicate this and put it on its own channel because we're going to end up fucking with this a little bit, so I don't want to ruin this first bit. So rather than having to do loads of automation and stuff, we can just use this as its own instrument. I mean, one thing I'm thinking is, I don't know if this will work, but if we put an LFO on to the level maybe. So we've got an LFO on the level of this saw wave. I don't want to do it too much, but we're just trying to get like a little bit of movement in there. Maybe let's send it to the level of the noise as well. Maybe something like that. Let's try with this one, have another saw, but an octave above. Let's send our LFO to this as well. Don't know if that's too much. Yeah, maybe I could take or leave that. Let's just add a little bit more to the harmony of these. Again, no idea what the hell I'm doing. I'm just going to put one note all the way through. So we've got all of these changing and then we have something on the top that's not changing. What this note will be, I have no idea. Let's see. Not bad. Right, I'm just taking the velocity down of the top notes so they're not as intense because they're taking over a little bit. I like the vibe of that. It doesn't work for all of them, but it's quite nice. I think something could be good. Okay, right, I like the foundation of that. What I'm going to do is just separate these two out. So we have the top one and a bottom one. So the original chords I'm keeping there, and then on this one up here, we're going to do that lead because I feel like that lead can have some mad pitch bends in it. Is that the right note? Right, I think that's it. Let's just evolve that a little bit. Let's do some pitch bends on that top one, and maybe we just open the cut off a little bit as well, so it's not exactly the same as the bottom one. So pitch bending out of that note and then into that note, I guess. And then I think we should leave a gap and then put an endless smile on it. Yeah, maybe that could go down. I think. Alright, let's copy that over and then do a bit more pitch bend. Yeah, way better. We could maybe do some of those little kinks that we did before, just to help it move a bit. Right, a bit too much there. Yeah, okay, that's too intense on those top ones. And then that could change to... something like that. Let's just try and stick a little erosion on that to give it a little bit crisp. Alright, let's have a little listen from the top.
Every time it rains outside, every time the sky flashes light, it's if put your hand in mine. We'll go out and dance like the sunshine, and I'm with you. I don't feel afraid, and I'm with you.
I like it less in context with the rest of the song, to be honest. I think it's a bit too weird. Let's take that. Just make sure the chords work for sure.
Hand in mine, we'll go out and dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you. I don't feel afraid when I'm with you.
So I think the chords work here and the chords work here, but I don't think the transition is that good. So that first note is B. This last note is F sharp. Just feels a little bit sudden when that comes in. So maybe, again, let's go back to basics. Let's just listen to the bass notes.
Every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine. We'll go out and dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you.
Right, I think it's cool, but we just need to bridge that gap a little bit. And how we do that, I'm not sure. Let's try a sort of classic run down the stairs to that next note, maybe?
We'll go out and dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you.
I mean, it doesn't work, but it's not a bad idea.
And dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you. Shining, and I'm
Maybe that's too high up there.
and dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you. Praise God. Go out and dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you.
Maybe that?
We'll go out and dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you.
It does something that creates some tension, but I don't think I would like it. It does something well, but it does something that I don't like at the same time.
Dance like the stars shining, and I'm dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you. Praise God shining, and I'm with you.
Maybe that?
Praise God shining. Every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine. We'll go out and dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you.
Right, I think that might work. I'm not sure. Let's see. So let's bring those bass notes down to this chord. Get a third octave above. Let's just see what that sounds like.
Hand in mine, we'll go out and dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you.
Let's take that up an octave.
We'll go out and dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you.
Push that.
Dance like the stars shining, dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you.
I think that works.
Dance like the stars shining, and I'm shining, 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 and I'm with you. Dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you. Dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you. I'm with, I'm with, I'm with, I'm with, I'm with, I'm with you. Shining, and I'm with you.
I think that's it.
Praise God, every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine. We'll go out and dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you.
Definitely closer.
I'm with,
Maybe that needs to climb up.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Go out and dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you.
Yeah, I think that helps the transition a little bit better. And then maybe with this little blink, 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 blink thing, we could do something different with that. So maybe take a few notes up. One, maybe. Is that the right note? Maybe that one we could come up one before. That chord feels a bit weird to me at the moment. Maybe to help the weirdness, if we add, so this is the chord it was before, maybe we add just one note that was in that chord so it doesn't feel so weird. Feels more weird. Maybe that. Every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine. We'll go out and dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you. I don't feel afraid, and I'm with you. And then maybe we could just add like a little bit more of a bass layer. So every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand. We'll go out and dance like the rays outside. Every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine. We'll go out and dance like the stars shining. Like the stars shining, and I'm with you. And I'm hand in mine. We'll go out and dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you. I don't feel afraid, and I'm with you. I don't feel afraid. Right, let's have a little listen from the top. Every time it rains outside, every time the sky flashes light, say put your hand in mine. We'll go out and dance like the stars shining, and I'm with you. I don't feel afraid, and I'm with you. Everything is great, and I'm with you. And there we have it. How you write some chords to a vocal. Fairly easy once you sort of break it down. Make the bass notes sound good by themselves. Number one. Number two, add a third, an octave up. And then number three, just mess about with stuff. As you can see, what we've done today, it's like it's sort of organised madness in a way. We're making stuff mad, throwing shit at a wall, and then refining it as we go. Trying out different things and just seeing where that lands you. Pitch bends, endless smiles, movement in the sounds makes it sound good as we have it now, even without any production or drums or anything. So if you can get stuff sounding good at this level, it's always going to sound good. So thank you very much for watching. I do hope it's helped, and love to your mothers.